Let's talk about the US dollar now. It's not like it was. This is not your grandpa's dollar bill anymore, folks. For a little context in history here, the US dollar has historically been a place to park your money. Markets, some of the 10 leading markets around the world, have historically always wanted to park their money in the US dollar as a safe haven when everything is seemingly, heading south. And right now we're seeing 30,000 new coronavirus cases just in the United States reported over Friday, Saturday. We don't even have Sunday's numbers yet. 30,000 new cases. Over 200,000 new cases worldwide over this weekend. And major concerns about a second surge or a current second surge of coronavirus. Maybe it's the continuation of the first wave, I don't know. Major concerns about it, and that is drawing world economies to look at a safer haven than the US dollar. This marks a major shift. And Steve Roach talked about this. He's one of the leading experts on Asia, and he says the dollar is going to fall very, very sharply. We're already seeing signs of this worldwide as movements towards the Yuan, which is the Chinese currency. So imagine that US currency is being replaced as an emergency dollar by Chinese yuan as a safer road forward, a safer place to park your money. And again, it all comes back to the way that the US has handled coronavirus, according to The Economist. Look, these money guys are dispassionate. They're not playing politics here. They're looking at the money. They're paying attention to all of these markets and yields. They're not paying attention to President Trump. They're not paying attention to Nancy Pelosi. They're looking at the way that these economies are reopening and the trouble that's unfolding in the United States. And China has problems in Beijing, and yet the yuan, the Chinese currency, is a safer haven than the US dollar. Investors, of course, typically looking to the US dollar in times of uncertainty. They don't make very much money when they park their money in the US dollar, but it's a safe, the buying of treasuries, etc. It's a safe play. Well, that emergency dollar is waning right now. Listen to Stephen Roach talk about this. He's one of the leading experts on Asia and seeing what's happening with these 10 major world economies pulling their money from the US dollar and shifting it to China. Take a listen.
In a chronic current account deficit. But these problems are going to go from bad to worse as we blow out the fiscal deficit in the years ahead. The national savings rate adjusted for depreciation is probably going to go deeper into negative territory than it's ever done for the United States or for any leading economy in economic history. And at the same time, America is walking away from globalization, focused more on decoupling itself from the rest of the world. I think that's a lethal combination. I think the dollar is going to do as a current currency normally does, and that is provide the equilibrium between saving and international imbalances. And I think the dollar is going to fall very, very sharply.
That's remarkable. By 35%, the US dollar could drop. So if your money, again, is tied to government currency, you need to get your head examined. Or if it's tied to the US currency, you need to get your head examined. And that means if your money is sitting in a savings account right now, or you have your money parked in cash, dollars, coins, you better guess again. That's why we saw a surge in focus on gold over the weekend. $1,700 a troy ounce right now, but could go up to $1,900, $2,000. Again, looking at real estate as a hedge against this inflation, and we'll talk about home prices here in just a minute, but parking your money in real estate or gold and silver and using a website like jmbullion.com or, buying real estate, buying protective assets as a hedge against this money. One of the other big concerns from these experts is the U.S. Federal Reserve. We've obviously seen Jerome Powell talking about there's no end in sight for keeping these interest rates low and the printing of money and the, flooding and buying up all of these corporate and junk bonds. And so one strategist said that lower for longer for a while to come as the central banks move to support financial markets following the coronavirus is another reason why we're shifting away from the US dollar. Further, he said the US exit strategy for the United States, if anything, looks poorer than it is for the rest of the world, referring specifically to coronavirus. So let's take a look at some of these numbers now and some of the different states. So Alabama right now is a major concern. Massive spikes in coronavirus cases. They're up 24%. And particularly hitting hard is 24% of the population that's been hit has been African Americans. 29,000 confirmed cases as of Saturday, and more than a quarter of the cases in the last 2 weeks. Additionally, Texas also being hit tremendously hard. 11% surge in a single day, and throughout the South, these cases continue to go up. Remember we heard that heat was the thing that would stop this thing? And we're seeing cases spiking in Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, all through the South. So apparently heat's not the only thing, but heat's not the thing that's going to kill this. But look at some of these other get back to work numbers right now as we see these spikes in cases. So here's Apple Maps. This is fascinating. This is the transit directions that people are calling upon to get back to work. And notice an uptick in transit directions, meaning they're taking the bus, they're taking the subways, they're taking trains to get back to work. And today, this Monday, they're allowed, is it 10 to 20% of workers in New York City are allowed to return to work? So you're going to start to see an uptick of people coming back into Manhattan on this slow approach back into the city. What about air travel? Air travel was really low, but it started to pick back up. I've had a couple of friends flying recently. It's kind of like a ghost town, but still it's starting to pick back up a little bit, and a little jump here over the past weekend. What about hotel bookings? Hotel bookings are going up and up and at a rate that's much higher. That shows that people are driving, not necessarily flying, and then booking hotels. So this is going to be the summer where you kind of maybe drive like 50, 60, 100 miles to your maybe vacation destination. U.S. restaurant bookings also going up and up again. And home purchases. Look at this. Setting records above where they were pre-pandemic. Home purchases. People flooding into open houses and such, going out, getting in front of realtors, going door to door, and homes right now are heading into a bidding war in many areas. China right now somehow is looking far more favorable for a place to park your money compared to the US dollar when you have all of these spikes in coronavirus cases across the United States. Pretty crazy. But then you also have the mainstream media. And it's also not surprising that the liberal media happens to lie on a regular basis to paint their narrative. I've got to watch them lie firsthand in their reporting time and time again. And so all of this focus on President Trump's rally this weekend, where there was about 6,200 people that showed up, which was not a lot, and we heard that the president was not happy about the turnout. But that's still a lot of people. 6,200 people. They expected 100,000. So it was not the number that they expected. But nevertheless, it's still a lot of people into an area where there's concern over health concerns, right? Having this, what the media was calling this, could be your super spreader event, because numbers of 100,000, and they were saying they expected that many. That would be the largest gathering we've seen. But guess what? It hasn't been the largest gathering we've seen. We've seen larger gatherings at all of these lockdown protests and Black Lives Matter protests in the streets, the George Floyd protests. But yet the mainstream media and the New York Health Department, interestingly, has been not asking people these questions. In fact, this is pretty hypocritical and pretty awful that they're trying to massage this data under de Blasio. A lot of people calling for him to resign in New York City. That basically a directive that when you're going out contract tracing, asking people where they've been, or do you have coronavirus, in the interview questions, they don't want you to ask if you've been involved in any demonstrations or protests. What? Basically trying to hide that information? Wouldn't that be a key? Did you just recently fly? That would be a question. Were you in a mass gathering of people recently? That's a question you should ask people. So you're not allowed to ask people if they've been in a demonstration, trying to hide that data? I mean, this is why people don't trust the mainstream media, okay? And so when you see tweets like this from NBC News, only an hour and a half apart, take a look at this. I find this stunning. Thanks for Mark Hemingway for pointing this out on Twitter. But look at this, little over an hour apart. Look on the left side of your screen. At 4:50 p.m., they tweeted this at NBC News: "Rally for Black Trans Lives draws packed crowd to Brooklyn Museum Plaza." Look at all those people. Thousands of people. No mention of healthcare concerns. Then, an hour and a half later, NBC News tweets this: "President Trump plans to rally his supporters next Saturday for the first time since most of the country was shuttered by coronavirus, but health experts are questioning that decision." But it doesn't fit their narrative, of course, to It doesn't fit their narrative. And that's why people don't trust the mainstream media. So I'm an equal opportunity offender here on the show. And like I said, that drives me nuts. But to hear like what's being kept out of the data in New York, and now 10 to 20% of workers are going to return using public transportation in New York City. Like, will we get actual numbers in New York if there are new spikes in Andrew Cuomo's backyard, in Bill de Blasio's city? I don't know. Do you trust it? Remember how vilified Georgia was because of their reopening efforts? And remember some of the shifty data coming out of Georgia? And people are, the mainstream liberal media jumped all over Georgia and slammed it, saying, that red state, we can't trust their data. They're lying to us. I don't see anybody talking about de Blasio on this. Although New York Magazine did say he's hated. Okay, that's one piece of it. But I don't see liberal media jumping all over New York right now. Remember, New York was the epicenter. So just we'll keep our eye on this. I'm just going to be curious and watch this. Will the New York Times report on it? Probably not. Doesn't fit their narrative. They lie left and right. So just keep your eye on that. I'm going to be curious to watch that story over the next few days, especially as millions of people come back to work in New York City on those subways and the hot, nasty subway cars in Manhattan. Have you ever been in a Manhattan subway? I used to use it all the time. My wife would look beautiful when she would enter the subway, free of being sweaty, and then you'd be packed in there like sardines, and you come out, my wife has long hair, she'd be like, oh my God, get me out of here. Some have air conditioning, some don't. Those heated tubes, there's like a hot box down there. And Pizza Rat, remember Pizza Rat just dragging a slice of pizza around down there? He's hanging out. He's excited for all these people to come back to Manhattan. So let's see if we get accurate data from New York this time, with them wanting to hide and keep this stuff quiet. We'll see. Don't count on it, though. I want to thank everyone for subscribing to the show. And by the way, we have our newsletter. It's totally free. If you just come to morninginvest.com, we have a link below in the description. It's a newsletter that we're working on, and I'm really excited about it. Makes you smarter in 5 minutes a day. Makes you smarter. It's all the financial news that I'm following and tracking, where you can read, in 5 minutes and with a sense of humor, get a sense of what's going on in your wallet, your 401k, the stories that I think matter to you and your family, not the Wall Street crap. I don't care about that. I care about you not making Wall Street richer. Okay, this is the show for the average person, showing you how to build financial intelligence. So thank you so much for subscribing. Check out our free newsletter. It's in the link below.